The storm rolled across the mining moon like a living thing, gnashing at metal outposts and ripping dust into spirals that clawed at the sky. Commander Rylan Ward pushed through the roaring winds, each step sinking into the trembling ground as he scanned for any sign of life. His visor flickered from interference, but he kept moving, guided more by instinct than by the sputtering equipment strapped to his suit. Beside him, Lieutenant Joss Wren wrestled with a sensor pack that hissed as static assaulted its displays. "We shouldn't be out here," Joss muttered, tightening his grip on the pack. "This storm's tearing the whole valley apart." "That's why we're here," Rylan replied, voice steady despite the chaos. "The distress signal came from this sector. Someone's out there." Joss didn't argue. He knew Rylan too well for that. The commander wasn't the kind of man to ignore a call for help, even when protocol allowed it. Especially when protocol allowed it. A violent tremor split the ground ahead of them, and both men braced as the earth groaned beneath their boots. Rylan activated his suit's stabilizers and leaned forward as the dust cleared just enough for his visor to find shape and color. The ravine ahead had partially collapsed, revealing jagged metal shards jutting from the rock, remnants of a wrecked shuttle. "There," Rylan said, pointing. "That's our source." They descended quickly, boots scraping against unstable rock. The air smelled of ozone and ruptured circuitry. Rylan reached the cracked hull and cut through a twisted panel with his plasma blade. As the metal peeled away, a faint pulse of blue light flickered from within, rhythmic and weak.
Joss leaned in.
"Life signs confirmed, but sir, these readings aren't human." Rylan didn't hesitate. He wedged himself deeper into the pocket of crushed steel, reaching toward the light. A small figure lay curled beneath debris, crystalline skin fractured and glowing irregularly, like a dying ember. The child, because that was unmistakably what he was, flinched as Rylan approached, emitting a soft, chiming sound that trembled through the air. "It's okay," Rylan murmured, lowering his weapon and raising his hands in a gesture he hoped the child would understand. "We're here to help." The child's luminous eyes opened, reflecting terror and exhaustion. Thin, crystalline fingertips clutched at his chest, as if holding shards together. Rylan gently lifted a beam trapping the small form, wincing at the wounded cry it triggered. The child tried to crawl away, but his legs buckled instantly. "Sir," Joss said, voice tight with concern. "We don't know what he is. Bringing an unknown alien on board, Captain Dane will lose it." "I'm not leaving him in a collapsing ravine to die," Rylan said, already sliding his arms beneath the fragile body. The crystalline skin was cold, but thrumming with a strange, rhythmic warmth beneath. "Call the extraction team. We're getting him out." Joss hesitated only a moment before relaying the order. Rylan began carrying the child out of the shattered hull, but a sudden mechanical shriek tore through the storm. Red lights snapped to life among the rocks, followed by the grinding sound of movement. Automated defense drones, spherical machines with razor-folding limbs, rose from the buried shuttle wreckage. "Those aren't ours," Joss shouted. Rylan didn't need the warning. The machines lunged forward, blades gleaming. He twisted, shielding the child with his body as he fired a controlled burst from his plasma pistol. The shots sparked off the drone's armor, but one stumbled back, limbs convulsing. Joss fired beside him, sending another drone plunging into the ravine. Still more emerged. The ground shook violently again, a deep quake rolling beneath them like an angry wave. Rocks tumbled from above. Rylan ran, gripping the child tightly while dodging falling debris. The drones scuttled over the terrain, slicing through rock as they pursued. "Extraction inbound," Joss yelled, firing blindly into the advancing swarm. A shuttle descended through the storm, buffeted by winds but holding steady. Its side doors opened, and rope lines dropped into the dust-filled ravine. Rylan didn't wait. He hooked one arm through a line and held the child with the other as the shuttle strained upward. Joss grabbed the second line and shot one last burst at the drones before they were lifted out of reach. The ravine collapsed fully moments later, swallowing drones, wreckage, and the place where the child had almost died. The shuttle doors slammed shut as the craft veered away from the destruction. Rylan knelt on the metal floor, helmet off, staring at the small alien curled against his chest. The child trembled, bioluminescent skin flickering as he attempted to speak. Soft, melodic words spilled out, beautiful, but incomprehensible. Rylan could only offer a reassuring squeeze. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I've got you." The child blinked slowly, as though trying to believe it. Joss pulled off his own helmet and rubbed his forehead. "This is going to blow up in our faces," he said. "If Dane finds out we brought a foreign species on board without permission." He was alone, Rylan interrupted. In a wreck. In a storm. Surrounded by hostile machines. Protocol doesn't matter when a life is at stake. Joss sighed, but he didn't disagree. As the shuttle climbed toward the distant glow of the human outpost, Rylan noticed the child's light dimming in uneven pulses. Each time it flickered, a sharp, crystalline crack appeared across his arms and chest. "Get medbay prepped," Rylan said urgently. "He's fading." The pilot acknowledged, increasing speed. The base's metallic silhouette rose ahead, shining faintly through the swirling grit. Rylan tightened his grip, feeling the fragile vibrations of the child's trembling form. He didn't know who this boy was, where he had come from, or what forces had chased him across the stars. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The moment he lifted him from the wreckage, their fates had become entangled. And whatever consequences waited on the horizon, he would face them. Because no matter how distant the stars, no matter how alien the child, Rylan Ward was not a man who abandoned those who needed him. The shuttle touched down, engines cooling with a rising hiss. The medbay doors slid open, lights bright and waiting. Rylan stepped forward with the alien child in his arms, straight into the consequences of a choice he could never have avoided. Dr. Harlow Creed worked with meticulous urgency, his gloved hands moving in precise patterns as diagnostic instruments bathed the alien child in soft beams of gold and blue. Rylan stood close enough to intervene if needed, though every instinct pulled him the child. Kale, as they had begun calling him, was fragile but not dangerous. The crystalline lattice beneath Kale's skin pulsed in erratic, fading rhythms that made Creed's stern expression tighten. "He's stabilizing, but only just," Creed murmured. "His physiology is unlike anything I've studied. The fractures in his crystalline structure suggest severe trauma, possibly internal resonance damage." Rylan nodded, though most of the wording washed past him. What mattered was the boy's survival. Kale lay on the medbay bed like a fading star, his light dimmed to a soft, pained flicker. Yet when he sensed Rylan nearby, the glow brightened fractionally, as if seeking him. Joss leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes scanning the steady flow of status updates across the hollow screens. "All I'm saying is we need to be careful. Unknown species, unknown tech, unknown politics. For all we know, we've just pulled the crown prince of some empire into our base without permission." Rylan shot him a sideways look. "And what was the alternative? Leave him there?" Joss didn't answer, because both of them knew the truth. Rylan would never have walked away. Creed adjusted a final parameter, then stepped back. "He's communicating, in a sense. These light patterns, bioluminescent pulses, carry emotional data. Primitive but expressive." Kale turned toward Rylan, emitting a soft chime. Rylan responded with a gentle hand on the bed's railing, offering what little reassurance he could. The boy blinked slowly, and the lights along his forearms shimmered in tentative patterns. Before Rylan could reply, the medbay doors hissed open and Captain Varric Dane strode in, all rigid posture and controlled authority. His presence shifted the room's energy instantly. He stopped beside the bed, eyes narrowing as he examined the alien child. "This is the life form you extracted without authorization," Dane said, voice devoid of warmth. Rylan didn't flinch. "He was dying. We acted." "Acting outside protocol can cost lives," Dane countered. "Including ours. Do we know anything about who, or what, this child belongs to?" Creed exchanged a brief glance with Rylan before answering. "We're beginning to learn. He's capable of projecting limited holographic imagery through crystalline resonance. Watch." He pressed a control pad, and Kale's skin brightened. A wavering projection filled the air above the bed, shapes, colors, and fragments of sound that formed a chaotic collage. It took a moment for the images to coalesce into something identifiable: towering crystalline figures, ships shimmering like carved stars, and a smaller figure being seized by armored strangers. Kale whined softly, trembling at the memory. Rylan stepped closer. He was running from someone. Creed nodded. Kidnappers, perhaps. Attempted abduction. Dane exhaled slowly, tension gathering in his jaw. We need to consider the implications. If those images are accurate, this child is part of a highly advanced species. If his guardians believe humans abducted him, they'll come looking, Joss finished grimly. Kale emitted another sequence of pulses, brighter this time, frantic in their rhythm. The room vibrated faintly, as if the very air felt his desperation. Creed hurried to capture the readings. This is a distress response.
No.
Not distress, he paused, brow furrowing. It's an alert. A beacon. Rylan straightened. Meaning? Meaning someone is already searching for him, Creed said. And they now know his location. An alarm shuddered through the base, sharp and urgent. Dane tapped his comm. Control, report. A voice crackled through the channel. Unidentified long range, signal detected. High energy.
System-wide.
It's massive, sir. We're tracking a fleet entering the outer orbit. Rylan and Joss exchanged a look that needed no words. Kale's glow intensified, not with fear this time, but recognition. Creed swallowed. That may be his mother's call. The medbay lights flickered as the base adjusted to heightened alert. Dane's composure cracked for a moment before he mastered it again. Prepare defensive protocols, he ordered. Lock down all entry points. And Creed, keep that child alive. If a fleet is approaching because of him, we need to understand what we're dealing with. Kale reached out a trembling hand, crystalline fingers brushing against Rylan's glove. The touch was featherlight, yet filled with unmistakable plea. Rylan felt the message beneath it. Don't let them take me. Rylan bent closer. You're safe, he whispered. I won't hand you over to anyone until we understand what's happening. Kale's glow steadied, though the tremor in his limbs remained. Joss lowered his voice. Rylan, this could be the start of a war. Maybe, Rylan replied softly. Or maybe it's a chance to prevent one. Dane began to leave, pausing at the doorway. Whatever is coming, Commander. You started this. Be ready to take responsibility for whatever follows. Rylan didn't flinch from the accusation. He simply turned back to Kale, watching the child's fractured light flicker in slow, fearful patterns. Outside the medbay, alarms continued to echo across the base as soldiers hurried to stations, preparing for the arrival of an unknown force. Above them, beyond the storm-scarred sky, a fleet crossed into orbit, massive, silent, and resolute. Kale's pulse of light changed, becoming a slow, rhythmic glow that felt like dread wrapped in memory. Rylan didn't know what kind of mother commanded a fleet to traverse the stars in search of her son. But as the room trembled with the distant vibrations of ships aligning into formation, he realized something with a clarity that stabbed deep. Whatever storm was coming, it would make the one on the valley floor look small. And Kale's mother was arriving with strength powerful enough to reshape the fate of every human on the moon. The first tremor rattled the outpost like a warning knock from the heavens. Rylan braced against a bulkhead as the lights flickered, their glow paling beneath the radiant shimmer bleeding through the storm clouds outside. The sky, once a swirling maelstrom of dust, now pulsed with crystalline brilliance, unnatural, powerful, and undeniably sentient. Fleet formation confirmed, Joss said, jogging to Rylan's side, visor lit with tactical overlays. Hundreds of vessels. They're not even hiding themselves. They want us to see them. Rylan had already expected as much. Any mother who could carve through space with ships that shone like carved starlight would not make a subtle entrance. Still, witnessing the armada fill the upper atmosphere struck a quiet dread into his chest. Kale clung to Rylan's sleeve with fragile crystalline fingers, his glow quickening as panic rippled through him. Each pulse mirrored the energy signatures in orbit, a trembling resonance that made Creed mutter under his breath. "He's responding to them," Creed said. "Their presence is triggering something instinctual. Recognition. Or fear." Rylan knelt to Kale's eye level. "They're your people, aren't they?" he asked softly. Kale shivered and emitted a sequence of discordant chimes that sounded nothing like comfort. His skin fractured with thin stress lines that flickered dangerously. Then the comm system erupted with a voice, cold, resonant, and amplified beyond any frequency human technology could reasonably transmit. "Return, my son." The words vibrated through the air like a physical force.
Consoles buzzed.
Loose objects trembled. Even Joss flinched as the voice continued, layered with fury and grief. "Return him, or your world will burn beneath my light." Creed exhaled sharply. "If that's his mother, she's broadcasting a planetary threat without even landing." "She thinks someone took Kale," Rylan said. "She thinks we're the kidnappers." Dane stormed into the operations bay, face taut. "All units to full alert. No aggression unless fired upon. And someone get me visual contact with that flagship." The holoscreens shimmered, struggling to capture the alien distortion fields. When they finally stabilized, a ship filled the display, a leviathan of crystal and light, wings unfurling like a luminous crown. Rylan felt Kale lean into him, seeking shelter from the very image of his own lineage. "Sir," Joss said, voice low, "Kale's not afraid of his mother. He's afraid of something else." As if on cue, another signal pinged the base perimeter. A smaller shuttle descended, its hull refracting light in prismatic waves. It landed with an impact that sent dust spiraling upward. A boarding ramp extended, and from the shimmering fog emerged a towering figure encased in crystalline armor, General Azrek. The air pressure around him shifted with each deliberate step. Dane tensed. "Hold the line. Weapons ready, but no one fires unless I say." The general approached with a phalanx of Averii soldiers at his back, their armor glowing like shards of living dawn. Rylan stepped forward, positioning himself so Kale remained behind him. Azrek's faceted eyes swept the humans with cold assessment before focusing on Rylan. "Human," he said, voice vibrating with layered harmonics. "You possess the War Lady's child. Surrender him." "He's injured," Rylan replied evenly. "He needs medical care." Azrek's armor brightened in a pulsing flare. "Your care is irrelevant. His mother's command is clear." Kale whimpered, light dimming. Rylan didn't move. "If you take him now, without understanding what happened, you may be putting him right back into the danger he escaped." The soldiers tensed. Dane cursed under his breath. Joss subtly shifted to cover Rylan's flank. Azrek stepped closer, crystalline talons extending slightly. "You presume to speak of our dangers? You, who hold our sovereign bloodline hostage." "That's not what we're doing," Rylan said. "We saved his life. You abducted him." "We pulled him from wreckage," Rylan insisted. "Surrounded by hostile machines. He wasn't running from humans, he was running from someone in your own ranks." The accusation cut the air like a blade. For the first time, Azrek hesitated. Kale stepped forward from behind Rylan, trembling, and projected a flickering hologram. Armored figures, Averii, dragging him toward a shuttle. Their armor bore no royal markings. Azrek snarled at the image, crystalline armor cracking in furious patterns. "Traitors." Rylan seized the moment. "We're not your enemy. But Kale needs protection. Real protection. And I won't hand him over until I speak to the one who commands you." "The War Lady does not speak to outsiders," Azrek hissed. "Then she came here for nothing," Rylan said, calm but immovable. "Because I'll only give Kale to someone who wants him safe." The boldness of the statement rippled through both groups. A human commander defying a cosmic empire was madness, yet somehow it didn't feel foolish. It felt necessary. Kale stepped beside Rylan and gripped his hand. The small gesture froze Azrek mid-breath. "This bond," the general murmured, voice shifting. "He trusts you." Rylan nodded. "I don't want a war. I just want the truth, and Kale safe from whoever betrayed your people. Azrek considered this for a long, tense moment. Finally, his armor dimmed in reluctant acceptance.
Very well, he said.
The War Lady will grant you audience. 1 human, 1 escort. He pointed a crystalline talon at Rylan. You. Rylan felt Joss's hand grip his arm in warning. Dane shook his head slightly, but Rylan had already decided. He looked down at Kale. I'll come with you, he said gently. I'll make sure you're safe. Kale pressed his glowing forehead to Rylan's wrist in a gesture that felt heartbreakingly familiar. Trust, given freely. Azrek motioned to his soldiers. Prepare the path. The War Lady awaits. As Rylan stepped toward the shuttle, the wind outside rose around them, carrying the distant hum of the fleet overhead. The storm on the surface had ended, but another, larger, brighter, infinitely more dangerous, waited above the clouds. And he was flying straight into its heart. The shuttle rose through the thinning storm until the sky became a river of crystalline light. Rylan remained seated, Kale pressed close at his side, while Azrek stood unmoving at the front of the cabin like a carved sentinel. The hum of HFY energy filled the air, too pure, too harmonious to be human, and yet somehow comforting in its steadiness. Kale's glow flickered in small, anxious pulses that vibrated faintly against Rylan's arm. You will address the War Lady with reverence, Azrek said without turning. She is sovereign of the HFY, guardian of our spheres, and mother to the heir you hold so casually. Rylan met the accusation with quiet resolve. I'm not holding him casually. I'm holding him to keep him calm. Kale leaned into him more firmly, as if to confirm it. Azrek said nothing further. The shuttle pierced a veil of radiant mist, revealing the flagship, a monolith of glass-like metal shaped like a blooming star. Its hull shimmered with layered brilliance, creating the illusion that the ship breathed. As they approached, an aperture opened, petals of light peeling back like the entrance to a sacred temple. Rylan stepped out first, Kale's hand in his. The air was warmer here, thick with resonant energy that tingled through his skin. Crystalline corridors arched above them, glowing softly as if responding to Kale's presence. Azrek led the way, his heavy steps echoing in a cathedral-like chamber that opened before them. She waited at its center. The War Lady was unlike anything Rylan had imagined, towering, luminous, every facet of her crystalline form carved in regal precision. Her armor glowed with threads of violet and gold, her eyes deep reservoirs of ancient light. But beneath the terrifying majesty was something far more raw, a relentless, desperate maternal fury. Rylan felt it before she even spoke. You. Her voice shook the chamber. You are the human who holds my son. Rylan forced himself not to shrink beneath her presence. I'm the one who saved him. Her gaze sharpened. Saved or stole? She stepped closer, and each footfall sang through the floor like struck glass. Why was my heir alone? Why was he damaged? Why did I sense fear from him rather than safety? Kale tugged on Rylan's hand, summoning courage as his glow stuttered into a shaky pattern. He stepped forward, and Rylan led him. The child projected a fractured hologram, mercenaries, cloaked figures, HFY armor stripped of royal insignia. His melodic whine trembled through the room like a plea. The War Lady froze. Azrek's fists tightened, crystalline edges splintering with fury. The traitors dared. Silence, she commanded, though her voice trembled at the edges. She knelt before Kale, lowering herself with a grace that turned her terrifying height into something almost serene. Her hand hovered over the child, refracting light in a trembling arc. My son, she breathed, and for that brief instant, she was less a warlord and more a parent crushing under the weight of relief. Kale placed his small crystalline hand against her palm. Their glow synchronized instantly, two pulses finding a rhythm that resonated through the entire chamber. Then he gestured with sharp, fearful flashes toward Rylan. The War Lady rose slowly, turning her gaze back to the human commander. He believes you protected him. I did, Rylan said. Whoever tried to take him wasn't human. They would have succeeded if we hadn't intervened. And I'd do it again. She studied him, the luminous lines across her armor shifting as she considered. And you ask nothing in return? I don't want anything, Rylan replied. Kale needed help. I gave it. That's all. Humans, she said slowly, are rarely so selfless. Our histories have recorded your wars, your conflicts, your hunger for expansion. Maybe, Rylan admitted, but we're also capable of compassion and responsibility. Her gaze dropped to Kale, who held tightly to Rylan's hand as though the two were now strands of the same tether. She approached again, closer this time, her presence no longer suffocating, but searching. You place yourself between two armies, she said, between a mother and her child. You challenge my general. You question my authority. She extended a hand to Rylan, palm glowing with warm intensity. And still, my son clings to you. Azraq stiffened in shock. The warlady's voice softened, though strength reverberated beneath each word. Human, you are now bound to him through debt and honor. The Averii do not forget such things. Rylan swallowed. I don't care about titles. I just want him safe. She seemed almost amused. Then you shall have what safety means in my empire. Her crystal palm opened fully. In our tongue, there is a name, HFY. It means child shield, protector of the young. It is a title bestowed only upon those who risk their lives to defend an Averii heir. Light surged from her hand like a rising dawn. I grant you this name. Rylan hesitated, but Kale nudged him forward. He placed his hand in hers. The energy surged through him, not painful, but immense, like being touched by the heart of a star. The chamber flared with brilliance, and even Azraq bowed his head. When the light faded, the warlady stepped back. You have my gratitude, she said, and my alliance. Should humanity ever call, the Averii will answer. Rylan exhaled slowly, overwhelmed by the enormity of her vow. Kale pressed his forehead to Rylan's wrist, an Averii gesture of deep bond, and then released his hand, stepping back to his mother, but still glowing in a pattern that clearly meant devotion. Azraq approached Rylan carefully, respect replacing hostility. HFY, you have altered the course of two civilizations. Rylan offered a weary half-smile. I just saved a kid. A child who will one day rule an empire, Azraq corrected. Soon after, Rylan was escorted back to the shuttle. As he glanced at Kale one last time, the boy lifted a hand in a small, shimmering farewell that filled the bay with warm radiance. When Rylan returned to the human outpost, Joss met him with a grin that was half disbelief, half admiration. So let me get this straight, he said. You stared down an interstellar monarch, stood between her and an army, and came back alive. Rylan brushed dust from his sleeves. Seems so. Joss clapped him on the shoulder. You're going to have to tell me everything. Rylan looked up at the sky, where the Averii fleet was already dissolving into streaks of light. Someday, he murmured, but not today. The storm had cleared. The stars shone bright, and somewhere among them, a child he had saved, an heir he had shielded, was safe.